Hello, it is Binks here. This is Binks Extras channel, so make sure you're subscribed down below. This is where I have all my extra stuff, like these OTA reviews, and I'm excited to touch on. September 14th. Balance updates. Today we are burdened with glorious purpose. It's been a wild start to the season for Marvel Snap, with Loki leaping into the metagame and setting it spinning. While we know Loki decks have been everywhere, they're one of the most popular archetypes in the history of the game. The actual performance of these decks has not been hyper concerning. Very interesting to hear that the data on the back end is not showing that Loki's quite as broken as some people may think. I still think the card's probably the best deck in the game. This metagame rapidly shifted to favor linear strategies that could dodge their own cards well. Today's OTA will seek to push a few cards into limelight while shaving some strength away from decks based on the trickster god himself. Collector, old 2/2, new 2/0, 2 power drop. Pretty big. I mean, I think for any Loki deck, losing 2 power in the collector lane is a little bit scary. Sometimes it's like not too bad to keep it under Sean levels, but I mean, I think that this is going to definitely put a little bump onto Loki decks for sure. Time better known as the Monkier, so we have a primary power carry in virtually every Loki-based deck. We're sure he'll still fill that role well with this change, but this could help other decks build boards that at least threaten to compete with him. It's a ding to his use in other decks. That was already pretty low. Loki will ensure that he always has more homes available. This change also makes him more vulnerable to a few counters such as, just a couple more things on Collector. It does kind of suck that any other non-Loki deck that's going to use Collector, like Devil Dinosaur decks, probably just have to completely cut Collector now. That hurts, but Collector probably wasn't in too many unless they're really shield focused. Important, and I think that this will actually help ping down Loki's power level, and the next change is crazy. Shadow King, old 3/3, new 2/3, another 1 mana discount for Shadow King. That's crazy. This card was released as a 4/3, and it has now been cut in half from an energy perspective. That's crazy. I actually said, I believe, back in my OTA review when it went from 4/3 to 3/3, that it could go to 2/3 and still not be one of the most broken cards in the game, and that's crazy. And I think that that's the case. I mean, I think this card is so strong now. A 2/3 with a premium control effect. Oh my gosh. Recent surge in Shuri and Collector has been good news for Shadow King, who's seeing play despite being relatively inefficient. We decided to take a similar approach here to what we did successfully for Luke Cage and Invisible Woman, boosting his base rate to a level where players can justify playing him in a wider range of strategies than just Silver Surfer and Cerebro. We expect this will relieve some pressure on Shang-Chi, and diverse way players can counter huge amounts of power. Awesome. I like Shadow King going to a 2/3. He might eventually have to move to a 2/2. It just depends on how powerful this effect is and how this pushes away, but pretty much any Sarah deck now, you're going to include Shadow King as a 2/3 that you can play as a 1 cost in the final turn. Super cool. You know, some people hate on very powerful and well-statted tech cards in Marvel Snap, but I personally think that's why the game is so great. Having so many different kind of like tools that can do really big and exciting things while still being able to be played in a lot more decks. I quite like. So I love this change. I don't think Shadow King will be crazy busted, but now a absolute premium 2-drop to consider in any deck. Super cool. Excited to see what happens there. Lady Sif goes from 3/4 to a 3/5. Nice little change. This used to be a 2/4 back in beta, and it got a whole energy upgrade and fell out of favor a little bit. I think the 3/5 is so smart for this. I mean, you look at like Polaris, right? Why is Lady Sif a 3/4, Polaris is a 3/5? Well, now they've changed that. Lady Sif is one of those cards that's always been solid, had at home in a couple specific decks. Apocalypse, Hella, Agatha buff Pog. However, individual performance has been stellar, and when a linchpin card for so many decks isn't doing well, we like to poke at that a bit. While we don't feel it's up in the metagame or anything, we'll be pushing some medium performance decks towards some time under the sun as one of the things we'd like to do via OTA, so let's try out here. Love it. Makes discard slightly better. Discard's at a horrible spot. Elias Galactus just eats... Elias Galactus destroys discard. I tried to play discard recently and it was a nightmare. So maybe if the Galactus Eliath decks or the Lockdown Eliath decks go away a little bit. But man, Eliath is a monster against discard decks. So we'll see. Spider Ham. Old 2/2, now a 1/1. Keeps the thing where it transforms the leftmost card in your opponent's hand. Interesting. I think it could have been a 1/2, honestly, and been fine, but as a 1/1, you have to consider it now. Very cheap, very easy card to fit into a deck, very transformative effect, gives you information, probably finds its way into Conquest now, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that impactful. We suspect the change in last week's patch might be damaging Spider-Ham's usage. We weren't sure, probably something like 65% sure. We were a fair amount of doubt. Given an OTA coming 1 week later, decided to launch this patch with the 2/2 stats, then buff to 1/1 if that week indicated needed help. It did, so here we are. I think it could be 1/2. I think it's a fine card at 1/2. Might be just better than Iceman though at 1/2. I don't know. The information is pretty important. Bit of a nothing burger. Spider-Ham's just nowhere to be seen right now. I don't know if making a 1/1 makes it more seen. And I'm kind of okay with Spider-Ham not being too seen because it is one of the cards that just really they played and you solo a deck. And it was so powerful when it was targeting the highest cost card. We'll see. Black Cat, a very interesting change. 3/7 to a 4/9. Very interesting. Black Cat's one of the weaker performing cards for a long time. Might be something we can't fix on OTA. We've played with this version enough for ourselves to be at least interesting to see what develops, especially with a couple future cards forthcoming. Yes, that makes you more likely to discard her than play her, but the only deck interested in Black Cat, we're already assuming you'd be doing that. So I guess they're just saying like pretty much people only play Black Cat because of Ghost Rider. Maybe like a Zabu discard Ghost Rider deck could be really cool with this change. You play Zabu down, you draw in 3, you get a 3/9. That's pretty crazy. Increasing your power, make that better perk. And the number 9, especially apt for female femme fatality. Fatale? I like this a lot. A little bit more power to Black Cat. Interested to see if this changes her play rate at all. And maybe I'll dig into like a cool Zabu discard deck because that sounds kind of interesting. Well, it's been about 7 minutes, and that's my thoughts on the OTAs. As far as most impactful change, I think Shadow King and Collector are pretty close to tied. Taking 2 power off of any deck is going to be pretty darn important, and pulling that away from Collector is huge. And Shadow King going on a whole energy, that card is going to be a menace. You're going to see a lot of Shadow King. So maybe you have to just adjust to it and not play a card. Just make it a 2/3 based on your deck. Very interested to see how things go. But I'm Binks. This is Binks Extra Channel. Make sure to sub and like. Goodbye. Oh my gosh, I didn't hit stop a car. Ah!